Thank you, Alex. Yes, it's very important that we point that out. And to speak more on these issues, we will be having Owen. Owen Whittle is the Secretary of Unions WA. Unions WA has been behind this legislation since it was first announced. Owen will be talking about why equity is union business. Please welcome Owen.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Pleasure to be here and really appreciate the opportunity to speak to why this legislation is important for working people in the trade union movement. Plenty of speakers are going to cover the other aspects of the bill, as Alex did. I just want to focus on why we've been calling for this for many decades and the other parts of this legislation and how it benefits Western Australia. These laws, WA has by far the most outdated equal opportunity laws as it kind of goes to our workplaces in Western Australia. Whether it's around sexual harassment and the need for workers to prove that they've been disadvantaged after they've been sexually harassed in order to bring a claim around sexual harassment under these laws is absolutely disgraceful. We know that sexual harassment is at pandemic levels in our workplaces, and WA being the only state that requires workers to prove they've been disadvantaged in their employment to claim around sexual harassment means that too many workplaces are getting away with looking the other way, or employers themselves are getting away with sexually harassing workers. Shame. In the world of work as well, this promised legislation will do about 5 or 6 things, but I'll really focus on 2 or 3. But just to quickly name a number of the other ones, is that this legislation is well overdue in terms of ensuring that sex workers can't be discriminated against because of their choice of employment. This legislation will also mean that casual workers or workers on contracts or in the gig economy can also not be discriminated against based on their employment. Family domestic violence as well. Workers who suffer family and domestic violence cannot be discriminated against when these laws are in place. And I think it's also worth just talking about vilification, because that was an important one talked by Alex. Anti-vilification laws are way overdue in Western Australia. For far too long, we've seen kind of a cloak of freedom of speech used in order to try to kind of get away with kind of saying all kinds of things about everyone in our community, and it's rife in our workplaces as well. But most importantly, and the most important part of these changes for the trade union movement, is the getting rid of religious discrimination provisions that allow religious employers to outright discriminate against workers in their workplaces. Now, I've got a couple of case studies I'm going to read from that talks about why this is important. So you'll excuse me while I find my notes. When we were consulting with union members on this legislation, we went and talked to workers across independent and religious schools. And here's 3 examples about what's currently illegal in Western Australia that employers are getting away from. First, in a kind of a small country town, a Catholic primary school refused to extend the contract of a worker who was pregnant and not being married. Shame. A female teacher in another Catholic school became pregnant through IVF. She was so happy that she was pregnant, she went and told her co-workers and showed photos around the workplace that she, very excited, advised all the workers. The principal called her into the office and advised her not to talk about her pregnancy or face dismissal. And this is a quote from the principal: "God's plan is that contraception takes place through sexual intercourse, through the act of love between husband and wife." And then threatened that worker with dismissal if they talked about being pregnant through IVF. And when unions were negotiating a new EBA at a Baptist school, that school advised the union that workers could be sacked for lying. When asked what that meant, the school bargaining representatives turned around and said, well, an example of lying would be a worker who pretended to be any other gender other than what they were made at birth. And it would be a serious lie and would be inconsistent with a Baptist ethos, and they could not stay working at the school. Now, all of this is currently illegal under our laws in Western Australia.
Shame.
It's absolutely shameful that employers are getting away with this kind of behaviour, attacking workers, sacking workers, or refusing to extend the contract of workers based on a whole range of issues, but particularly around their gender identity, their sex, or how they choose to run their personal relationships. It has no place in a workplace for an employer to kind of run these moral lens over these workers, and needs to be eliminated from our laws. these laws are urgent, they need to happen as soon as possible, and they should be the defining legislative change in this term of government, and probably of the entire terms of the Labor government. It should be one of the most important things that they do, and especially the most important thing that should be occurring this year. So solidarity to the activists who are fighting for these changes. The union movement is behind you on it, and we'll continue advocating for this to happen as soon as possible. Thank you.
Yeah.